Hi everybody and welcome to this week's video. This is going to be a different type of video than I've ever made before. I'm going to do a little speed paint and talk you through what I'm doing as I'm doing it, so I hope you enjoy. So I am doing Alison Lyon Art's Love Butterfly Challenge over on Instagram, and for this challenge I thought it would be a good chance for me to get to grips with watercolors, so I will be using my Kuretake Gumbai Tansai, I think I've said that right, watercolor set, which I've had for a really long time but I've never really used, so hopefully this will give me a chance to get to grips with watercolor. So I had made my sketch before filming, and like I said, I am doing the Love Butterflies challenge. So this particular butterfly is the Eastern Tiger Swallowtail butterfly, and I am using Alison's tips on how to paint it. So I selected my 4 colors out of my watercolor set because the Kuretake set does take up a lot of space on my desk, and I don't have that much space as it is. And then I was able to put those individual pans on my mixing plate so that I could add water to them easily and dilute down the color. So like I said, I'm not very used to watercolors, I'm much more used to gouache, so this was a little bit difficult for me just to get my head around, but thankfully I got a lot of wonderful tips over on my Instagram, and I started with the lightest color first, which is the yellow. I'm using number 42 in the Kuretake set, which is a bright yellow color, and using a lot of water to paint a very light, even wash all over the yellow areas of the butterfly. So once I had done all of the yellow areas of the butterfly, I decided to move on to the blue dots on the bottom wing of the butterfly, and this is because it didn't touch any of the yellow areas. As I said, I received lots of watercoloring tips, and I had also been watching a lot of YouTube videos on watercolor to get an idea of how to work faster without being impatient, and this was one of the tips, was to work on areas that didn't touch each other so that whilst you were waiting for an area to dry, you could work on another area. So again, using a lot of water to give a really diluted down color, because I wanted to build up the layers later, I just painted in the few blue dots that were on the bottom of the butterfly's wing. As I did this illustration on an A6 piece of paper, I used a variety of brush sizes. I mostly used a size 0 for the larger yellow areas, and then moved down to a 4/0 for the spots on the wings in the blue and the yellow, and then for this area here in the orange, I'm using a 10/0, which is the smallest brush I own, and is also my favorite size. Once I had painted in all of the light colors, it was time for me to go in with the black and paint in the rest of the butterfly, and this is where I struggled a little bit because I found that I didn't make my paints wet enough so that I could keep it moving on the paper and for it to not dry whilst I was refilling my brush or reloading my brush with pigment, so that I didn't get any of those funny lines. But because I was doing such light washes on this particular piece, I was able to go in later and do a couple more layers, and that gave me a much more vibrant look to the illustration, as well as being able to help me correct any of the little mistakes that I made. After I had painted in all of my butterfly and left it to dry, so I made sure it was fully dry, I went in with my Faber-Castell Polychromos colored pencils to do all the little details, and I had made a little swatch sheet as I had been painting just to check the pigmentation of my paints, as I didn't want to make any areas particularly too light or particularly too dark, and so that made it really easy for me to check my coloring pencil colors and pick what was best. Normally for my illustrations, I like to line them with a fine liner in either a black or a really dark grey, but I thought that would be a bit too heavy for the delicacy of the watercolors and how wonderfully light and airy this piece felt. So I decided instead to line it with the colored pencils I used for the detailing, and I thought it was really nice. I did end up lining all of the black areas on the butterfly, and I just thought it made the segments of the wing stand out really nicely and also kept that nice light airy feel. Then the very last thing that I did was go in with a very dark blue colored pencil just to outline those blue areas because I felt like they were getting a little bit lost, and put in the very last details. The Eastern Tiger Swallowtail has these really lovely sort of dotted effects on its wings, and I didn't want to add them in paint because I felt like I would be a bit too heavy-handed. Using colored pencils just gave me that little bit more control. I did decide in the end that the orange paint I had used wasn't bright enough, so I did go over it in the colored pencils and then just add the final few dots in the orange, and that was it. So here we are, this is the finished illustration. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please make sure that you give it a like and subscribe to my channel, and let me know in the comments below if you would like to see me do more of these videos in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.